You are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Welcome, movie lovers and theology nerds, to Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. I'm David, and welcome back to our newest series of our discussions in the lobby. As a reminder, this series is part of the exclusive content for our premium seating patron saints, whose support we greatly appreciate. This first episode, of course, is available to the public, so enjoy, share it far and wide, and consider supporting us on Patreon to hear the rest of the discussion. So for this series, what we're going to do is explore various topics related to cinema, storytelling, and scripture. And to help us do that, I'm thrilled to welcome our very special guest, Matt Whitman, from the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Matt, welcome to the lobby.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to be here. And thank you for accommodating my chaos. I've been a difficult guy to track down these last couple of weeks with moving and whatnot. It's nice to actually be sitting here with you finally.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, it's been excellent. We were just talking off line before about how crazy both of our lives are at the moment. And so, just thank you, listener, for joining us. Matt, thank you for joining us as well. So for those maybe who aren't familiar, which I guess could happen, could you tell us a bit about yourself as well as your many projects that you've got going on, and specifically like podcast projects? Although you can tell us about your home projects, I guess, if you really want.
No, that's boring. Nobody cares about that stupid stuff. We've just been moving, and it's ridiculous, and a big giant sob story about the chaos of trying to move a family of 5. Whatevs. The fun stuff is on the internet. I've had a YouTube channel that I've been doing for a long time, basically 10 years now. And it is called Matt Whitman and the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. That is to differentiate it from my daily Bible podcast called the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast, where we pick a book of the Bible and then we chip away at it in 10-ish minutes of content. I leave a couple extra minutes for goofing around and stuff too. Every day, it's fast, fun, free daily deep dive Bible. I've got my little saying kind of figured out at this point. Over on the YouTube channel, which obviously has the video component, I go around and visit other people's churches from traditions that are different than my own. I do Bible content that is meant to be educational and fun and other stuff as well. So we got the YouTube channel, we got the daily Bible podcast, and then my buddy Destin, who's got a YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day, he and I do a podcast as well called No Dumb Questions. 2 guys talking podcast. He's a rocket scientist. I'm a philosophy, humanities, religion guy. We pick a topic and we're good friends, and we bicker like children and try and go down the rabbit hole of these topics. And he rocket sciences it, and I philosophy and history it, and we have fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. We're definitely going to include the links in the show notes. And I will say, I've greatly appreciated 10-Minute Bible Hour and recently discovered No Dumb Questions. And I've been familiar with Destin's work for quite a while. And so I'm really excited that you guys partnered up. I was like, wait a minute, Destin. How many Destins are in the world? Could be a different guy. Nope, same guy.
No, it's that guy. Yeah,
it's that guy. So those are fantastic. And I really the series that I spent the most time in of 10-Minute Bible Hour is the one where I think you took quite a break from your normal scheduled programming to go through the entire Bible book by book. And that was really enlightening because I'm, the kind of pastor's kid. It's easy to get lost in like, oh yeah, I'm generally familiar with these books. Nope. Turns out I wasn't. There's quite a few I was super lost on, and I really needed that realignment. So
that's awesome. And quick anecdote in keeping with that. Okay, I'm the same. I'm a pastor's kid. Theoretically, I should know this material. I worked at church for quite a while, and then I went to seminary. Dr. Robert Yarborough was my intro year New Testament professor. He's pretty good. He's pretty smart, apparently. And he knew that everybody was coming into that class already knows everything about everything, in quotes. Yeah. And so he gave us a pre-test on our first night of all these guys were like, why do I even have to take New Testament? I'm pretty much an expert. He gave us this pre-test and we took it, and I got a few questions in, and I could feel the mood of the whole room matching my own as we all realized, dang, None of us have any idea what the heck we're talking about. We are all full of crap. We don't know anything about this document. I am shamed and humbled, and my grade on that pretest was deeply humiliating, but so was everybody else's. It made it a little bit easier for me to learn in the class, but I had to get knocked down a few pegs first. So the point is, boy, oh boy, do I know what it's like to approach the text as somebody who kind of thinks I know what it is. And also, well, there's a lot to learn and I don't know what all's in there. It's a
Yeah,
humbling book.
it is. And I think that, so first of all, that's a really excellent, so the professor in me is thinking that that's a really great idea that, oh yeah, so here's an assignment. Just to remind you that you don't know everything. And we all need those reminders on occasion. Because I like to tell my students, I said, the smartest that I've ever been was the day I graduated high school. And I've been in college more or less ever since then. And, you think I'd be smarter now. Now, the fact is, I've just discovered how much I don't know. But when I was in high school graduate, I had no idea what I didn't know. And that's, again, deeply humbling. So one thing that I wanted to do, there's so many rabbit trails we could go down because we both have spent time in Rapid City, South Dakota. And that's where you're currently living, right?
Yeah, my family's from here, my mom's side in particular. Dad is from the other side of the Black Hills in Wyoming. And so this has been family home since forever, but I've been all over the place for, college and school and teaching and whatever.
Nice.
So most recently I spent the last 10 years, I'm looking out the window toward where it is, as though people watching this on YouTube will understand what that gesture means. I'm looking that way toward Yellowstone. We used to live out by Yellowstone and Grand Teton for about the last 10 years. Now we moved back here to civilization where there are things like stores. It's pretty fun.
And year-round stores. Yeah, that's probably the other feature. Yeah, you can buy stuff any time in the year. We made the mistake of going to Yellowstone in May. Yeah, it was May. And I thought, oh, it's basically summer because I'm from South Carolina. Now mostly closed still for the season. So, that's on me. But so I lived in Rapid City for graduate school. And so I would say both Did
you go to Mines?
I went to Mines. Yeah, South Dakota School of Mines.
Cool.
Yeah. Studied paleontology there.
Cool.
It's only come in handy on the podcast once or twice. But
fair enough.
In terms of my career, a bit more so. But anyway, yeah. So you mentioned you were moving. I was just making sure you weren't leaving the promised land, if you will.
No, just getting more situated. This place is great. I have nowhere else I want to be.
Awesome. Fantastic. I'm a big fan of the mountain time zone. I feel like that's the time zone that most aligns with where I want to be. But anyway, that being said, I've noticed in listening to your podcast that you've made quite a few references, sometimes subtle, sometimes not as subtle, and just to film, TV, things like that. And so I was curious if you have a favorite film, favorite TV show, or maybe a couple if you want to rattle those off. That's a question we like to ask our guests just to start things going.
No, I do not have a favorite. At any given time, I say that is in my top 20 right now of all time. But if anything new comes into it, then I have to bump something. It's very hard to keep track of it. For a long time, I've kept a written document, and I mean a long time, of what are currently my top 20 everythings. It just sort of feels like a way to keep tabs on the stories that inform me and remember, because it's hard to keep everything in your brain at once, and to remind myself of things I've found beautiful and meaningful. But I'd have a tough time putting together that top 20 right now. I'm going to slightly pivot on your question, and instead I want to talk about a couple of perfect movies. Toy Story 3 is a perfect movie. Did I like it? No. Those movies are fine. They don't really move the needle for me. But in terms of structure, development, pacing, execution, I can't deny it's just excellent. It's a perfect movie. I have basically no notes for that movie, but I only say basically. Maybe I would have a few notes. The movie I have no notes for is Gran Torino. Gran Torino is the perfect movie. It's perfectly executed, paced, thought through. It's just flawless. And perfect movies aren't necessarily my favorite movies. Maybe I like some of the bumps and clumsy stuff if the execution isn't quite right, but I really appreciated those. I thought Midnight Mass was a perfect TV show. It is not my favorite TV show, but wow, the execution was absolutely brilliant on that program. I thought The British Office was a perfect TV show.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
difficult to watch at times. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have been perfect if they hadn't had the redemption arc in the Christmas special. You had to have the Christmas special.
Hmm.
Yeah, in terms of storytelling, there's stuff that resonates with the human experience and the seasons and nature and all the things that we don't even pay attention to that add up to feel believable and right and real. And if your storytelling or whatever you produce squares with that, it feels good. It feels
Mm-hmm.
right. And when your dumb storytelling is trying to mash an agenda, even if it happens to be one that I like, so hard, if that is the reason you wrote your thing, it just isn't going to be good. It has to have a touch.
Mm.
The art has to win, and the themes have to flow out of the quality of the art. Sermons, either for Christian things or secular leftist things, sermons disguised as art are easily outed and have the opposite effect they want to have. They make the audience resentful and only attract dumb people. And then your movement is all dumb people who are gullible and
Mm.
can easily be manipulated by shallow storytelling. But
Mm.
most people see through that crap. So I really like the stories, even if they don't promote the ideas that I like. I really like the stories that feel true and authentic, that are paced properly, where the characters do believable things for who they are, not for whatever whoever's making the movie would idealize necessarily even.
Mm.
And so yeah, those are the kind of things that I really look for. In
That's
terms of
awesome.
movies that spoke to me, still, when I was a kid, I saw Braveheart, and that is not a perfect movie. Far from it. Still speaks
No.
to my heart. The third Lord of the Rings and the Ride of the Rohirrim when they arrive and the horn sounds. Oh my goodness! Come on, it's not a perfect movie. It's the one that won all the awards from the trilogy. It's not perfect, but it speaks to me, and just just the symmetry, the payoff of Gandalf has his staff broken and he's ready to be struck down by the Nazgul, and the horn of rescue sounds for him now. When just
Mm.
one movie and one battle earlier, he sounded the horn of rescue for the ones who now come to rescue him, and the theme of friendship and loyalty and coming through in the pinch, and that violin score. Oh, it's great. It might not be perfect, but it's perfect for my heart. So now you know why that question was hard for me to answer.
I was going to say, it sounds like you make a far better film critic than I do. That's for sure. What
I
we
don't
do,
know.
I don't really exactly consider to be film criticism. And so, to be able to quantify perfect and, mistakes and things like that. I struggle a little bit more because I take a more subjective approach to films, but kind of more akin with what you described for Lord of the Rings, which is that for me, this really resonated. And that is, I don't have the skills for the film critique side of things, and so I'm very
Well,
curious
okay.
though.
Let me hit that real quick though.
Yeah.
What kind of films consistently don't resonate for you? What do they have in common?
Ooh, wow, good question. Consistently don't resonate. I mean, like you said, if there is a clear, if I'm being led to a message, if I'm being led to this is what you need to walk away from this with, there's a moral to this story. Then morals are great for fables, right? Morals are great for parables, but
Sure.
for stories, no. So I would agree with that because you were mentioning that earlier. And of course, there are just certain settings and genres I'm not particularly a fan of. And so I don't really give them probably the due credit. And so things like horror movies is just really not my thing.
Why isn't it your thing?
I struggled a lot with fear as a child. And so I think
Okay.
I got to the point where I said, you know what, there's an element of fear in a story that is necessary for good storytelling.
Yeah.
And then there's an element that I just don't want to experience too much. And actually, this is funny because the previous In the Lobby series we just did was all about horror. I wasn't on that one, but James had two guys who were big horror fans. And one of them is a horror author that really explored the depths of the value of that genre. And that's fantastic. I don't fault anyone else for doing it. It's just, we all have things that we prefer and that resonate with us. And that just happens to not be one of mine. So I'm curious for you, is that what are some of the things that consistently apply to the stories that don't resonate with you? Like, essentially, you mentioned a couple, but any others?
Sensationalism. That's where I would mostly agree with you on horror. For me, fear is maybe part of the equation for why that isn't usually my favorite thing. But stuff where the story and the arc of the characters isn't the point, but giving you a cheap feeling as a viewer is the point. And I mean, there are a few genres, some that I could say out loud, others where I just won't say the word because it'll probably get you tagged and affect the algorithmic favorability toward your program. But there are genres that we all know, whether we consume them or not, that are designed to give you a sensation as a viewer. They're interactive in that way. It's not about making you resonate with courage or the attributes of the characters or whatever. It's primal. This genre makes you scared. This genre makes you feel enthralled in a, maybe even, I'm just euphemizing. You know what I'm talking about. I just want to make it
like an action movie kind of thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. An action movie where there is no plot and no character development. Or films that are erotic first and foremost. It's just meant to make you feel a thing. I don't resonate with that. Sex, sexuality, violence, all of these things are part of life. They're part of the human condition, and all very interesting tools to wield in the service of great storytelling, where we track believable characters through a difficult ordeal. I mean, that's the stuff that I want to see. Any movie that sort of strips the difficult ordeal and the growth in the characters and just gives you the sensations, those movies don't resonate for me. They feel like cheap money grabs, and it feels like you want a stupid audience. You made it for a stupid audience. Well, I don't want to be a stupid audience. It's why I don't watch things that are on CBS. They make the stupidest shows for the dumbest audience, and I don't like it. I never have. That's their play.
That's interesting to tie it to a studio, because I've never really, if you ask me what shows came on CBS, I would say NCIS. That's all that comes to mind. For some reason, that's the only one I can peg to that network.
When we're off air, just go Google.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And it will be all the stupidest ones. It will be all the things that you find patronizing.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, so sensationalist things that don't challenge me. And again, for me, this is the thing that I want from art. I want to get pushed. I don't have to get pushed in directions I already like. If you tell me a story that is true from a perspective I'm not crazy about and that I tend to push back on real hard, but it smacks of truth, I will like your movie, because that is listening. It feels like I listened to someone who's living and expressing something I do not feel, that I do not live out. And I might come away and be like, oh, dang, you just need Jesus. That's probably going to be my conclusion, but I'm still grateful for having listened. And I'm grateful to the person I disagree with and live different than for making a work of art with me in mind, instead of just screaming all the things they feel. They actually empathetically thought, what would it take for me to tell this very niche story about my very niche life in a way that has some artistic touch and that could make this something that would be of value to someone totally unlike me? Well, that takes empathy. And I like that kind of art. I don't need to agree with your art to think it was awesome. But if you are just screaming your things about you, and it's almost like me as the audience is the problem, like I'm the thing to be overcome, then I tend to not like it and not resonate with it. So all of that is in service of answering the question you bounce back to me that I shot to you about what kind of things consistently make a program not resonate. I suppose that'd be my rambling take.
We hope you enjoyed this first episode of our In the Lobby series. To watch future episodes, click the link in the description to support us on Patreon and become a patron saint. Subscribe on YouTube for more content, follow and interact on social media to share with others, and remember, you are not a mindless consumer.